Let's switch gears to a trending ticker on Yahoo Finance, Costco. Costco shares, they are falling pre-market after missing analyst expectations for revenue in its second fiscal quarter. The big box retailer did, however, beat estimates in its same-store sales, rising 5.8% compared to the 5% that was expected. Joining us now for more on these results, we've got Noah Rohr, who is the Morningstar equity analyst here. I mean, Noah, if we kind of draw a through line between what we were just talking about with the employment situation and Costco's earnings. I mean, retail, that was ultimately little changed over this last month. However, you did see general merchandise retailers really account for the majority of those gains in that particular sector here. As for Costco and how they talked about employment and the broader state of their business on the call, I want to know what jumps out most notably to you.
Yeah, we think it was a really strong quarter again for Costco, with comparable store sales in the U.S., excluding fuel, up 4.8%, up 9% in Canada, 8.2% internationally. So broadly, they just continue to attract consumers to their warehouses. And I think what's really encouraging is really the composition of that comparable store sales growth, right? They continue to drive 4 or 5% traffic to their stores. So as they continue to grow their volumes in their warehouses, they can continue to lever their fixed costs and just sort of reinforce this flywheel and just strengthen their competitive advantage, their cost advantage over time. So we think it was a really strong quarter again.
You still have a market perform rating on the stock. This is a stock that's up about 55% over the past year. What's fair value to you when it comes to Costco?
Yeah, so our fair value estimate on Costco right now is $4.80 per share, which our fair value estimate implies about a 30 times price to earnings multiple. Really not necessarily an indictment on the company. We think the growth outlook for Costco is still very strong. And as I mentioned, we think that this quarter just sort of reinforced its wide moat rating that we were the company. But the valuation to us does seem a bit stretched.
To what extent is Costco an indicator from your perspective of the broader economy right now, especially as we think about the consumer?
Yeah, I think Costco's core consumer tends to probably hold up a little bit better than the average consumer. And I think as consumers start to feel a little bit more tightness in terms of the broader economy, we could see volume continuing to increase at Costco. So potentially, we could see Costco kind of benefiting from a tighter macro environment or a little bit slower consumer spending. And we've heard that with Walmart and Target too. They've mentioned that consumers are more value conscious. And we think as people kind of keep going to Costco, that sort of reinforces that view.
No, when it comes to the positioning of Costco, really what it tells us more broadly speaking about the consumer narrative right now. We heard from President Biden last night in his State of the Union address. He's talking about the fact that consumers have been resilient. They still remain extremely confident. From the retailers that you cover specifically within the consumer staple space, what are some of the trends that you're seeing? And what is that indicative to you just in terms of the strength of the consumer at this point?
Yeah, I think broadly speaking, the consumer is still pretty strong, right? And that showed up in the retail sales. I know it was a little bit softer last month than expected, but generally speaking, across our coverage, management teams and companies seem to say that consumers are a bit more stretched than they have been over the past few years, but they're still spending, they still have money in their pockets, and they are seeking out value a little bit more, but generally they continue to spend. So overall, I think the consumer is still doing okay at the moment.
As of right now, I mean, we're watching shares pre-market lower by about 3%. Costco over the past year to date, or even over the past year, if you look back that far, up 60%. At what point do you believe that it's time for some of the investors out there to consider taking profits, or is there a next leg higher that they should remain locked in for?
Yeah. Again, kind of going back to our fair value estimate, we do have it at $4.80 per share. So we do think that the valuation has gotten stretched. Obviously, Costco is, I don't want to say recession proof, but maybe a bit more recession resistant, so to speak, just given their low price value proposition. and that resonates with consumers. So I think we'll still continue to see the business performing well, but we do think that the valuation is stretched at the moment.